Shanann, are you home? You checked upstairs, he's not there.
And he stuck around because he was the one for me.
My office filed formal charges against Christopher Lee Watts.
One morning in August 2018, a father did something very disturbing. He placed his wife's dead body in the back of his work truck. He then told his two pretty, sleepy little girls to get into the truck with him. To feel safer, they brought their blankets. The man then drove to a Colorado oil field that was far away. When they arrived, he removed his wife's body from the truck while the two little girls watched. He instructed them to remain inside the truck. The next thing that happened was very scary and sad. This is the story of the Watts family murder. It's a story about love, death, and the desperate search for truth. Subscribe to watch more videos like this in the future. Let's go back to the beginning. Shanann got back from a business trip around 2 a.m. on August 13th, 2018. Her friend Nicole saw her go into the house. Later that day, Shanann didn't show up for a meeting with Nicole and didn't answer her calls. Nicole went to Shanann's house because she had also missed a doctor's appointment. The doorbell was not answered. Chris, Shanann's husband, told Nicole that they had decided to split up when Nicole called him. He said the girl's playdate was with Shanann, but her car with child seats was still in the garage. Nicole called the police out of concern. Nicole told the cops she knew the house's number, but couldn't get in because there was a lock inside. The police knocked on doors and windows, but no one answered. They asked a neighbor if they had seen Shanann or Chris, but they had not. Chris was at work when the police called him. He said Shanann had a playdate with a friend's kids, but he didn't say who the friend was. Chris finally got home in his work truck. He shook the officer's hand and opened the garage door, telling her that Shanann's car was the only one she would have. Chris opened the door for the policeman and Nicole. The officer asked Chris if he had checked upstairs because he thought Shanann, who has diabetes, might have passed out. Chris reported that he discovered Shanann's phone, albeit turned off, under her pillow upstairs. He called it her lifeline. Nicole seemed upset to be close to Chris. She asked if the security cameras could record when Shanann left. Chris told her unless she went out the front door, even though the doorbell camera was running. Nicole reminded Chris that he had told her that Shanann was going to have a play date with the girls. Chris said, "That's what she told me. She went to a friend's house with the kids." Adi, Nicole's friend, told Chris that he said Shanann and the girls went in the middle of the night. Chris said this wasn't true while still holding Shanann's phone. They went to the house of a neighbor who had that night's security video. The video showed Chris's truck backing into the garage. Chris said that he did this a lot because his truck had tools in it. While he watched, Chris put his hands on his head and looked upset. The neighbor told the police officer he's not acting right after Chris left. He acts real, moves around a lot, and rocks back and forth. Chris said that when he told Shanann he wanted to split up, she got angry and took the girls to stay with a friend, but he didn't say which friend. The cops talked to Chris some more, but they couldn't find Shanann or the girls in the house that day. The next day, family and friends passed out flyers looking for lost people. After getting Chris's approval, the police came back with cadaver dogs to search the house. One cop said it looked too clean and smelled like cleaning products. As the media gathered outside, Chris agreed to do several interviews. Chris responded, "It wasn't a fight," when a KMGH reporter asked if they had a fight before Shanann left. It was a very moving talk. Chris looked emotionless in one interview with his arms crossed. He shook from side to side, which can be a sign of lying. He shook his head no and smiled in a way that didn't match what he was saying when he said he wanted his family back. The FBI and CBI joined the search after Shanann, and the girls went missing for days. They found out that Chris was seeing a friend named Nicole Kessinger. During the 5 weeks that Shanann and the girls spent with her family in North Carolina, Chris was free to continue seeing someone else. He went with them for the last week of their trip. The cops, who knew about Chris's relationship with Nicole Kessinger, called in to question him. Despite numerous opportunities, Chris consistently denied having another woman. Nicole talked about meeting Chris in May or June 2018 and going to his house twice to look at pictures of his wife and kids. Nicole looked online for ways to track text messages the day after Shanann and the girls went missing. The police found thousands of texts, pictures, and videos that Chris had hidden from Shanann with a secret app. The texts, pictures, and videos were between Chris and Nicole. The authorities warned Chris that it would be foolish to take a polygraph test if he was involved in his family's loss. The test subject said he was a bad liar because he didn't follow easy directions questions on the pre-test, Chris failed the entire polygraph test about Shanann and the girls. However, he kept saying he wasn't lying, even after being told this. The police forced him to say what had happened. Chris finally admitted that he had cheated on Shanann, but he said he didn't hurt her, and accidentally said that Shanann was pregnant instead of is pregnant. When asked if Shanann did something, Chris said, "She didn't do anything to those kids. We both love them with all of our hearts." He used the present tense love, not loved. The agents thought that something bad happened to the girls first, and Chris then had to deal with it and maybe clean up for Shanann. This made it sound like Shanann was to blame, which was a bad way to ask questions. Chris asked to talk to his dad alone. After they talked about splitting up, Chris said in a whisper that Shanann wasn't herself. He said he heard noises upstairs and saw the girls look blue, which made it sound like he was trying to keep Shanann safe. Chris told the agents the story he told his dad, which was that Shanann killed the girls upstairs after they talked about splitting up. He then said that he had choked Shanann after what she had done. His upset father sat next to him as he told the truth. Chris said he loaded their bodies into his truck and drove to Survey 319, an oil site about an hour away, where he had been working. Soon after Shanann got home, the police were able to see that his truck's GPS data had taken them to that spot. When the girls asked him about it, Chris told them to get in the back of the truck and put Shanann's body behind the driver's seat. Chris kept telling his dad that Shanann was unstable after the agents left. The dad then told the family what Chris said about Shanann killing the girls. Chris used pictures of the oil spill to figure out where he placed Shanann's body and where the girls were. After he talked about splitting up, agents made him say again that Shanann killed the girls. People might know that Shanann killed her girls, but Chris said he didn't hurt them when asked if that was okay with him. The FBI agent told Chris that he didn't believe him. Chris was charged with killing Shanann. The girls' bodies were found at the oil site, pushed through small holes in 2 different oil tanks, according to police. Being pushed through the 8-inch hatch hole hurt Bella, who is 4 years old. On the hatch of one of the oil tanks, where someone had dumped her tiny body, they found Cece's blonde hair. She was only 3 years old. Shanann's body was lying face down in a fetal position in a hole that was only 100 feet away and no more than 2 feet deep. At the sad scene, the sheet she was wrapped in stayed. Chris Watts avoided going to trial by making a deal to plead guilty. He agreed to do horrible things in exchange for life in jail without the chance of parole. 5 straight sentences and 5 lives to think about the horrible things he did. It was at that point that Watts told the truth. He said that when Shanann got home, they were naked together before he told her he wanted to end their marriage. A fight broke out as Shanann begged, "You're never going to see the kids again. Leave me alone. Don't hurt the child." Watts told how he shook and wrapped his hands around his wife's neck, not being able to let go even as she fell to the ground. He kept hearing her last words, which might have been a prayer, but Shanann's father is still certain that the person she should have trusted the most raped his daughter while she was sleeping. Because she was such a loving mother, there was no way she wouldn't fight to the death for her children. Little Bella walked into the room with her pink blanket in her hands and asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" Chris said in a cold voice that Mommy wasn't feeling well, while Shanann's dead body lay face down on their bed. Because she was such a loving mother, there was no way she wouldn't fight to the death for her children. When they got to the empty oil site, Chris took off Shanann's cloak while Bella and Cece kept asking, "What are you doing with Mommy?" In the back seat of the truck, he pulled Cece close, put a blanket over her head, and strangled her to death. This was his last act of fatherly love. In the jail halls, Bella's haunting words, "Is that going to happen to me too, Daddy?" would always be heard. As his first child cried, "No, Daddy, no," Chris couldn't bring himself to answer. Instead, he suffocated her under a blanket. He then started putting back together the life he had ruined while he was drunk. He took the girls out of school, called real estate agents to sell their house, and even texted his lover. From behind bars, the monster kept telling anyone who would listen about his horrible crimes. Was he enjoying his newfound fame or trying to make amends? 2 women bravely came forward. One of them had visited him in jail almost every other week. Watts talked longingly about the life he ended so violently, telling his wife and kids how much he loved them from behind bars. "If only I could go back to normal," he complained to the women who came to see him. The court papers were very scientific in their analysis. 33 pounds of pressure made it hard to breathe. The person passed out in 30 seconds, and they died of brain death 4 to 5 minutes later. Watts looked straight into the eyes of his dying wife the whole time, but he was too afraid to look at his girl's last gasps, so he put blankets over their heads. Even Watts' mother, Cindy, was angry. In a very public statement, she said she never thought Shanann was the right woman for her son. She said Shanann wasn't her normal type because she was criticizing Chris's habits and looks. Chris's parents didn't even show up to their wedding, but she knew Chris would do anything to help Shanann. 5 days after the killings, Chris faced several charges, including first-degree murder of children under 12 years old, illegal abortion, and tampering with dead bodies. Later, Chris's lawyer said that Chris admitted to killing Shanann after a fight over the divorce, with Bella joining in the act. Chris pleaded guilty to avoiding further stress by following Shanann's family's wishes. He got 5 life sentences without the possibility of release, plus extra years for pregnancy and body tampering charges. He was first sent to prison in Colorado, but he was moved out of state because of safety worries, possibly because other prisoners were making threats against him because his children had been killed. Years later, Chris wrote letters admitting that he had planned the killings for weeks ahead of time. He said that he gave Shanann OxyContin to end her pregnancy so that she could be with his lover in peace. He also revealed that he attempted to suffocate the girls at home prior to their strangulation. Chris will spend the rest of his life in jail. Shanann's friend Nicole is credited as the unsung hero, raising the first alarms that initiated the investigation before Chris could cover his tracks from his selfish desire for a different life. If this documentary hits you hard, smash that subscribe button like a like button is out of commission. Leave a comment in the comments section below and share your thoughts on the case. Let's keep the conversation going.